Have you ever felt like something unseen, guilt, fear, or doubt, is quietly shaping your life? What if the very forces holding you back were also the doorway to your deepest power? Carl Jung believed they were. In this video, we'll explore the shadow, one of Jung's most profound psychological insights. You'll discover how facing what you've been taught to suppress can lead to true emotional freedom and unlock a level of potential you never knew you had. But first, who was Carl Jung? A pioneer of depth psychology, Jung devoted his life to understanding the hidden layers of the human mind and soul. He famously said, "Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is." In other words, the more you avoid your shadow, the more it controls you. These hidden parts don't just disappear. They leak into your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors. They keep you stuck, disconnected from who you truly are. Ignore your shadow long enough, and it turns destructive. You'll start blaming others for what you refuse to face in yourself. This is called projection, and it's the source of countless conflicts. In relationships, in careers, in your own internal dialogue. It's why so many people feel like they're not really living, just reacting, moving through life trapped in patterns they don't understand. But by the end of this, that can change. You'll see what's been silently shaping your life, and more importantly, how to reclaim control. So stay with me, and if you feel something resonate, comment below. What part of your shadow are you ready to explore? Because recognizing the shadow is just the beginning. That's where the real transformation begins. And here's the deeper truth most people never hear. The very traits you've been told to hide, your intensity, your ambition, your darkness, may be the foundation of your greatest strength. Carl Jung taught that the shadow isn't evil, it's repressed. Formed by family, society, trauma, shaped by everything you were told to suppress in order to be good or normal. From the moment you were a child, you learned what was acceptable and what was not. And piece by piece, you began to push those rejected parts into the dark. But what you buried didn't die. It waits, and the day you decide to face it is the day everything changes. This is what Jung called the personal shadow. The vault where we store every trait, desire, or emotion we've been told to reject. Imagine a child repeatedly scolded for showing anger. Over time, they internalize the message, anger is bad, so they bury it. But that anger doesn't vanish, it goes underground. And as an adult, that same person may struggle with assertiveness. They might feel frustrated when others express themselves freely, without even knowing why. But here's the twist. If they were to turn inward and face that buried anger, they might find something transformative, a hidden capacity for assertiveness, boundaries, and self-respect, all essential for real confidence and connection. Jung also spoke of something larger, the collective shadow. This isn't just about individuals, it's about cultures, societies, and groups, the parts we collectively deny. A culture that idolizes toughness may suppress vulnerability, teaching its people that showing emotion is weakness, so connection, softness, empathy, all pushed into the dark. Both personal and collective shadows shape us every single day. A person who hides their vulnerability might lash out when criticized. Someone who buried their creativity might feel jealous of others who live boldly and freely. These parts don't stay quiet. They live beneath the surface, pulling strings from the dark. But here's the good news. Understanding your shadow isn't just about healing pain. It's about reclaiming power. Despite its ominous name, the shadow isn't something to fear. It holds tremendous potential. If ignored, it creates barriers. If explored, It unlocks strength, insight, and creativity you never knew you had. One of the clearest signs of shadow activity. Emotional triggers. When someone's confidence bothers you, when a friend's openness feels uncomfortable, when someone's success makes you restless, that intense reaction isn't random. It's a clue, a signal that something inside you, something important, has been buried. Jung taught that the shadow holds both darkness and light. It contains our fears, but also our instincts, our suppressed pain, but also our untapped brilliance. It's not the enemy. It's a misunderstood part of ourselves, waiting to be integrated. And in the next parts, we'll go even deeper. We'll explore shadow work, the process of reclaiming those hidden parts. You'll learn how to track emotional patterns, identify your projections, and reconnect with the self you've forgotten. Because when you stop running from your shadow, you stop running from yourself, and that's when your real life begins. Maybe, without realizing it, you've buried your own desire for recognition, your own hunger for success. So when you see it in someone else, a colleague, a friend, it stings. But that sting isn't always about them. It's a mirror, a reflection of something hidden within you. Carl Jung called this projection, and it's one of the most powerful tools for self-discovery. Because once you learn to spot it, every emotional reaction becomes a roadmap. The next time you feel a surge of frustration, judgment, or envy, pause. Ask yourself, what is this really showing me about myself? These moments aren't just reactions, they're signals, flashes of buried emotion, repressed desire, or unacknowledged pain, surfacing through your response to the outside world. And this shift in perspective, it changes everything. Instead of lashing out in criticism, instead of shrinking in shame, you pause, you reflect. What does this reveal about me? This question transforms how you relate, not just to others, but to yourself. It builds compassion. It deepens authenticity. It reveals that many of our strongest judgments are actually echoes of unresolved parts of our own psyche. And yes, it takes time. It takes self-awareness. It takes patience. Think back to a recent moment, a spouse, a parent, a friend, where something they did got under your skin. Now ask, what am I seeing in them that I may be avoiding in myself? This is where real growth begins. But here's something just as important. Not all projection is negative. Your shadow doesn't just hide shame or fear, it hides your light. You might feel admiration towards someone's creativity, courage, or charisma, not realizing that you're drawn to those traits because they already exist within you, waiting to be reclaimed. Recognizing positive projection is just as vital, because it helps you take back the strengths you've buried under fear, rejection, or conditioning. Jung believed that working with projection and integrating your shadow isn't a one-time fix. It's a journey. Only the man who goes through his darkness, Jung said, can hope to make any further progress. It takes courage. It takes honesty. But the rewards are profound. Deeper self-awareness, emotional resilience, relationships grounded in truth, not projection. And here's the radical truth. Your darkest traits, the ones you've been taught to fear or hide, might be the exact keys to your highest potential. This flips everything we think we know about personal growth. Jung's shadow is not a box of flaws. It's a vault of hidden power. It holds your anger, but also your boundaries. It holds your fear, but also your bravery. It holds your shame, but also your unapologetic self-expression. What if the part of you you've been running from is actually the part that could set you free? This is the invitation, not to destroy the shadow, but to finally see what it's been protecting all along. This shift in perspective is everything. When you stop approaching your shadow with fear and judgment, and instead meet it with curiosity and openness, you begin to reclaim parts of yourself that were never flaws to begin with. Take assertiveness. In many cultures, especially for women, assertiveness is painted as something negative. Too much, too aggressive, too bold. So people bury it. They push it into the shadow. But here's what's missed. When you bring assertiveness out of the dark, it becomes power. The power to set boundaries. The power to speak your truth. The power to pursue your goals without apology. The same goes for creativity. Many suppress it, dismissing their dreams for more practical paths. They silence their artistic voice. They tell themselves it's not realistic, not responsible, and over time, they grow frustrated, numb, unfulfilled. But when creativity is reclaimed from the shadow, it becomes a source of vitality, of innovation, of deep, personal joy. Jung believed that by integrating these buried traits, both light and dark, we move towards something he called psychological wholeness. Because real growth doesn't come from perfection, it comes from integration, not by rejecting what doesn't fit the mold, but by embracing every part of who we are. This is the goal, to become the most complete, honest, and authentic version of yourself. But Jung didn't romanticize this process. He warned that the shadow is not just a psychological puzzle, it's a moral challenge. The shadow, Jung said, is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality, for no one becomes conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. In other words, shadow work is hard. It means facing what you've denied. It means holding space for discomfort. It means doing the work most people spend their whole lives avoiding. But if you're willing to do it, the rewards are real. You unlock new reservoirs of strength. You gain access to forgotten creativity. You develop resilience, not by pretending to be whole, but by actually becoming whole. You don't just learn how to cope, you learn how to lead, how to love, how to live, as all of you. So where do you begin? Start with what catches your attention. Think of someone you admire, or even envy. What traits stand out in them? Is it their boldness, their charisma, their ability to speak freely, their unapologetic authenticity? Now ask, could these traits exist in me too? Not fully formed, but hidden, suppressed, waiting. This is how the shadow speaks, through longing disguised as admiration. And another way it speaks, through your emotional reactions. That irritation when someone shines too brightly. That tightness when someone sets a boundary you never gave yourself permission to. That discomfort when someone embraces a part of life you were taught to fear. Every one of these is a signal, a breadcrumb, a chance to reclaim something essential. Because when you embrace what you once buried, you become who you were always meant to be. When someone triggers a strong emotional reaction in you, positive or negative, don't look away. Pause. Ask, what does this reveal about me? More often than not, the traits that provoke the strongest response are the ones you've buried in your shadow. But remember, the goal isn't to eliminate the shadow. You can't, and you shouldn't. It's a natural part of who you are. The aim is to develop a conscious relationship with it, to stop running, to stop hiding, to stop pretending the parts of you you've cast into darkness don't still influence your everyday. Because when you work with the shadow, when you face it head-on, you begin to harness its energy. And that energy becomes power, clarity, self-awareness, balance. This journey, it's not about perfection, it's about becoming whole. But what does it take to confront your deepest fears, the ones so deeply buried you barely recognize them? What happens when you finally stop numbing out, stop distracting yourself, and turn inward? Because while shadow work promises deep transformation, it also demands something rare, discomfort, and many turn away the moment it arrives. But what if that discomfort is the key? What if the fear, the shame, the guilt are signals? What if they're not barriers, but invitations? Carl Jung believed that awareness alone is not enough. Real shadow work takes moral courage. To become conscious of it, he said, involves recognizing the dark aspects of the personality as present and real. Not as theory, not as metaphor, but as truth, alive inside you. This is the threshold. And the first step is often resistance. Your mind wants to protect you. Self-reflection can threaten the image you've worked so hard to build. But if you feel discomfort, pay attention. That discomfort is a signal. It means you're close to something important, something that needs healing, something that's ready to be reintegrated. Shadow work takes two things: bravery and kindness. The bravery to confront what you've ignored, the kindness to meet it without judgment. Because real healing doesn't happen through punishment. It happens through presence, through space, through compassion. And yes, you will feel things: guilt, shame, anger, sadness. Let them rise, let them speak. They are not signs that something's wrong. They're signs that something real is finally being felt. Don't turn away, turn inward. Because what you're meeting in the darkness is the part of you that's been waiting to be seen. When strong emotions rise, anger, shame, frustration, recognize them for what they are. Signals. They're not threats. They're not failures. They're messages from the parts of yourself asking to be seen. Acknowledging these emotions rather than avoiding them is how healing begins. But here's what's essential: emotional resilience. Shadow work isn't about escaping discomfort. It's about learning to sit with it without becoming overwhelmed. One of the most powerful tools for this is mindfulness meditation. It doesn't silence your thoughts. It teaches you to watch them, to let emotions rise and fall like waves without being swept away. You become the observer, not the storm. And there's another key shift: letting go of judgment. Many of the traits buried in your shadow were exiled because someone once told you they were wrong. Society, culture, even family may have labeled parts of you as too much, not enough, or unacceptable. But what if instead of condemning these parts, you approached them with curiosity? What if you stopped asking, "What's wrong with me?" and started asking, "What is this trying to show me?" That shift opens the door to understanding, and understanding is the first step to integration. But make no mistake, shadow work isn't a one-time awakening. It's an ongoing conversation. Jung called it a long process of negotiation, a lifelong dialogue with your unconscious. Just when you think you've uncovered one truth, another layer emerges. That's why, if you're just beginning, start small. Don't dive headfirst into past trauma. Begin with your everyday life. What irritated you today? What did you judge harshly? What triggered something deeper than the situation called for? These small moments are gateways, invitations to begin a deeper journey. And one of the most powerful tools you can use: a pen and paper. Journaling offers a private space to explore what's been hidden. No filters, no pressure, just raw truth. This isn't about perfect sentences or keeping a polished diary. It's about letting your mind speak freely. Start small. Set aside a few quiet minutes each day. Reflect on a moment that triggered you. Ask, what exactly made me upset? Why did I react that way? Patterns will begin to emerge. Themes will surface. And with each entry, the shadow becomes just a little more familiar. Pair this with mindfulness. Pause throughout your day. Notice how you feel, not just mentally, but physically. Where are you holding tension? What emotion is just beneath the surface? This awareness changes everything. And if you ever feel lost in the process, you don't have to do it alone. A skilled mentor, coach, or therapist can guide you through it. They can offer tools, perspective, and reflections you might not see on your own. Because shadow work isn't just about healing, it's about becoming whole. It's not about becoming someone new, it's about finally returning to all the parts of yourself you've left behind. You already have the tools. Now all that's left is to begin. Turn inward and ask yourself, what am I seeing in this person that I might be denying in myself? This simple shift in perspective reveals the parts of your shadow that are asking for attention. Because often, the traits we react to, whether in admiration or discomfort, are reflections of something hidden within. Jung emphasized that this work must be approached with two things: honesty and self-compassion. As you begin to uncover different aspects of yourself, it's vital to meet them with curiosity, not criticism. The goal isn't to erase the shadow, it's to understand it and to build a conscious, healthy relationship with it. Here's a simple routine to begin practicing shadow work in your daily life. Morning. Spend a few quiet minutes in mindfulness. Pay attention to your thoughts and feelings without attaching to them. Throughout the day, pause and check in with yourself, especially during emotional reactions. These moments often hold the most insight. Evening, journal for 10 to 15 minutes. Reflect on what triggered you, what patterns emerged, and what emotions stood out. If you encounter resistance, that's not failure. It's a sign you're getting close to something meaningful. When difficult emotions arise, respond gently. It takes courage to face the shadow. Every small act of awareness is a step toward integration. But why do certain stories, myths, and legends resonate so deeply across time and culture? Because they speak to something timeless within us, our shadow. Take Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. In the story, Dr. Jekyll creates a potion that unleashes Mr. Hyde, a wild, destructive version of himself. This transformation is not just fantasy, it's metaphor. It shows what happens when we suppress the darker parts of who we are, when we try to split good from bad, light from dark, without integration. The lesson is clear. Ignoring the shadow leads to destruction. Wholeness comes not through division, but through acceptance. And this theme isn't unique to one story. Myths across cultures echo the same truth. The trickster, Loki in Norse mythology, the cunning coyote in Native American tales, figures who disrupt, deceive, and create chaos. These characters embody what we try to hide: unpredictability, mischief, contradiction. But they're also agents of change and transformation. By studying them, we begin to understand how the shadow moves through our own lives, how it challenges, teaches, and reshapes us. These stories endure because they speak directly to the inner battle, the struggle between who we think we should be and who we actually are. And most importantly, many of these stories reveal a powerful truth. The hero cannot become whole until they confront the shadow. Jung believed this too. The shadow isn't just darkness. It holds creativity, strength, intuition, potential that's been waiting to return. So next time a myth, book, or legend strikes something deep in you, look closer. It might not just be a story. It might be your shadow calling you home. One powerful way to explore your shadow is by paying close attention to the stories and characters that evoke strong emotions. If a particular myth or tale stirs something deep in you, joy, grief, anger, admiration, It's likely reflecting a piece of your own unconscious. The shadow often speaks through what moves us. Ask yourself, why does this story affect me so deeply? The answer may uncover a hidden fear, a suppressed desire, or a trait you've disowned. Another method: reframe the story. Try seeing it from the villain's perspective. What drove their actions? What wounds were they carrying? When we allow ourselves to understand the antagonist, we develop empathy, not just for them, but for parts of ourselves we've long rejected. Because the villain in the story may mirror the shadow within you. Exploring your shadow through myth and narrative isn't just insightful, it's transformative. It reveals the parts of yourself you've pushed away and helps you bring them into the light with compassion. But this work doesn't stop at the personal level. Carl Jung believed the shadow exists not only within individuals, but within societies. He called this the collective shadow. It's the part of culture we choose to ignore. Prejudice, violence, injustice, exploitation. It includes every uncomfortable truth we'd rather not face, because facing it would require change. When we avoid the collective shadow, the consequences are severe: division, mistrust, inequality, and what's worse, these destructive patterns are often justified, framed as normal, or even necessary for the greater good. But Jung was clear: to truly heal as individuals and as a society, we must confront these darker aspects at every level: moral, political, spiritual. And it starts with personal shadow work. Because when you face your own hidden fears and biases, you start to see how they connect to larger systems. You become more sensitive to injustice, more aware of power dynamics, more equipped to act, not from guilt or shame, but from clarity and courage. For example, someone who's worked through their internal prejudices is more likely to notice and challenge discrimination in their workplace or community. Personal healing becomes social change. But let's be honest, facing the collective shadow takes bravery. It means owning painful truths, having uncomfortable conversations, admitting past mistakes, acknowledging historical harm. Jung once said, "The world is still full of scapegoats," because it's easier to blame others than to confront what lives within us. But when we take responsibility for our shadow, we stop casting blame and start building solutions. Healing the collective shadow takes many forms. It may look like public apologies, truth-telling, reparations, changing long-standing but harmful norms. These steps are difficult, but they are necessary, not just to heal the past, but to prevent the same wounds from repeating. Jung believed that by facing both our personal and collective shadows, we create a more fair, humane, and balanced world. And as he once said, the courage with which we bear our own darkness frees others from having to carry it for us. Because when we take responsibility for our shadow, we lighten the burden on the world. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself in a peaceful, radiant space. Before you stands a mirror. But instead of your reflection, you see a shadowy figure. Step closer. This figure is not a threat. It's a part of you. It reveals traits you've ignored, fears you've buried, and parts you've tried to forget. Now, instead of turning away, step through the mirror, merge with the shadow. Feel the discomfort transform into calm, into clarity, into completion. When you open your eyes, carry that feeling of wholeness with you. Because when we accept every part of ourselves, we don't just survive, we begin to live fully, authentically, powerfully. This is the path Jung called individuation, the journey of becoming whole, where the conscious and unconscious are no longer at war, where you don't split yourself between light and dark, but bring everything into alignment. And while personal shadow work transforms your inner world, its effects ripple outward. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow has shaped modern psychology, spirituality, and healing. From tools like the Myers-Briggs personality test, to depth therapy and spiritual counseling, to emotional intelligence and leadership practices, the shadow now sits at the center of how we grow. Therapists, coaches, and healers use it to guide people beyond surface-level issues. Because real healing begins when we stop rejecting parts of ourselves and start reintegrating them. Even mainstream therapy, like cognitive behavioral therapy, often leads clients to their shadow. By unpacking our thoughts and actions, we uncover hidden fears, desires, and memories. Research confirms it. People who practice self-awareness and self-acceptance are less anxious, more emotionally resilient, and experience deeper relationships. Shadow work frees us from fear. It dissolves shame. It gives us our power back. But this is not just about mental health. It's about spiritual maturity. Growth isn't about chasing constant positivity. It's about learning to hold both the light and the dark. And only when we integrate both can we become truly whole. In leadership and community, shadow work creates more honest, wise, and compassionate spaces. Leaders who face their shadow lead with integrity, not ego. They bring truth instead of performance. If you're curious about starting this journey, many resources are available. But remember Jung's core message. Shadow work isn't about fixing yourself. It's about becoming who you already are. And as you do this, something else happens. You help heal the world. Because by facing your own darkness, you relieve others of the weight they were never meant to carry. So ask yourself, what would change if I stopped running from my darkness and embraced it instead? Because often, the path to wholeness leads straight through the shadow. Jung once wrote, "There is no light without shadow." This simple truth holds profound power. Wholeness doesn't mean being flawless. It means being real, honest with every part of your psyche. It starts with curiosity. What parts of me have I been avoiding? What do I harshly judge in others that might reflect something in me? The answers may be uncomfortable, but they're also transformative. And as you accept what you once rejected, your strength grows. You become more grounded, more capable, more clear. You respond instead of react. You lead with truth instead of fear. You stop self-sabotaging and start self-supporting. At the center of this process is one thing: radical self-acceptance. Not to excuse harm, but to understand it, to see how wounds formed, and to begin the long, courageous work of healing. Because what once felt like shame or fear can become your greatest source of strength. Imagine facing a challenge at work. Instead of reacting, you pause, you breathe, you respond with wisdom. This is the power of integration. And in relationships, it means deeper connection, better communication, and genuine trust. You'll know your needs. You'll express them. You'll embrace vulnerability not as weakness, but as truth. To experience this shift, try this simple practice. Sit comfortably. Breathe deeply. Bring to mind a part of yourself you've struggled to accept. Hold it gently in your awareness and repeat, "I acknowledge this part of me. I accept it as part of my whole self. I am worthy of love, as I am." Sit with that. Feel the shift. This is not indulgence. This is healing. Because in embracing your shadow, you unlock creativity, resilience, and deeper awareness. As we close this exploration of Jung's shadow, remember, This is not a one-time event. It is a lifelong practice, a return to self again and again. Jung said, "To become conscious of it involves recognizing the dark aspects of the personality as present and real." That's where the work is, and that's where the growth is. He called the shadow the door to individuality. When you open it, you find your strength, your voice, your truth. So as you continue this journey, reflect on this. How would your life change if you stopped running from who you are and finally embraced it? This is the path. It's yours to walk. And if this resonated, like, comment, and subscribe. Share your experience below, whether you're just beginning or already deep in the work. Because when we share our stories, we help each other heal. This is a community of truth, growth, and transformation, and it all begins by turning inward.